Here we are again at Exodus chapter 16, verse 4. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. Notes, the manna prefigured the descent of the true bread, of which if a man eat, he shall live forever. And of course this is referring to Christ. You can find a little bit more in John chapter 6, verse 51. Scripture, And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day. Notes, this proclaims that the fact that we are to partake of Christ every single day. You see the typology, and it's pretty amazing when you think of it. Scripture, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or no. Notes, now I got to admit that I took the word prove them and, I changed it right there, but it really actually is properly translated to test them. Everything the Lord does with us is actually to prove us. How will we act and how will we react? As we will begin to notice, it took probably 40 minutes to get the people of Israel out of Egypt, but we're going to figure out that it's going to take more than 40 years to get the Egypt out of them. Pastor John Hagee is the one who's famous for quoting that, and I agree with him wholeheartedly on that particular issue. Verse 5, And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Notes, they were to gather twice as much on the 6th day as they had on the previous days, but which the Lord would miraculously multiply in order that they may have sustenance for the next day, on which they would not be allowed to do any work. Very shortly the Lord would institute the Sabbath. Verse 6, And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, At evening then you shall know that the Lord has brought you out from the land of Egypt. Notes, even though Moses didn't record it here, verse 13 proclaims the fact that quails were sent in the evening. Verse 7, And in the morning then you shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he hears your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that you murmur against us? Notes, now the next morning this manna was sent. The murmuring of verse 6 through 8 proclaim that God hears and sees all the acts of man and will hold each person responsible as to right and wrong in every single detail. You can find that in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11 and onward. Verse 8, And Moses said, This shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord hears your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. Notes, well, basically Moses is kind of washing his hands here. Verse 8 is basically a repetition of verse 7, but it emphasizes the statements of that verse and prepares the way for what follows. When looking back toward Egypt, Israel murmured. When looking forward toward the wilderness, they saw the glory of the Lord. Now, discontent magnifies what is past and vilifies what is present without regard to truth or reason. The absurd then murmurs. Verse 9, And Moses spoke unto Aaron, Say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your murmurings. Notes, those in positions of godly leadership do not hear all the murmurings of those whom they are attempting to lead. It is well that we do not, perhaps because we could not bear it. But God hears and yet bears. Verse 10, And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Notes, this verse seems to indicate that the entirety of the children of Israel should present themselves as a whole congregation to the Lord. Now, concerning the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud, it is not known whether something was visible or not, but more than likely the cloud took on a new appearance of greater glory. Verse 11, And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At evening you shall eat flesh of the quail, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, which is manna. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God. Notes. Past miracles are convincing. But unless there are fresh evidences of God, the natural man will soon forget and lapse into unbelief again. Murmuring was the first sin committed by Israel after being delivered from Egyptian bondage. We must understand how displeased the Lord is at such an action. Verse 13, and we're about to get down to some nasty business. And it came to pass that at evening the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around about the host. Notes, it seems that the quails, as appears by the subsequent narrative, were supplied not regularly, but only on rare occasions. In fact, as far as it appears, only here in the wilderness of Sin and at Kibroth Hattava in the wilderness of Paran. The mention of the dew in this manner implies that that which looked like dew was in part dew, but not wholly so. Now, the next the next verse explains it to a greater degree. Verse 14. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. Notes, the manna was so precious that it could not bear contact with the earth. It fell upon the dew and had to be gathered before the sun came up. This teaches us that yesterday's blessings will not do for today, nor for tomorrow. Thus must the Christian feed upon Christ daily as he reveals himself in the Scriptures. Verse 16. This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man of them which are in his tents. Notes. In Egypt, Israel had slave food, and in the desert they had angels' food. The test quickly revealed that the natural man had little appetite for heavenly things, for the people soon called it the light food, which is not very, they're insulting God's cooking, and we're going to see verse 17. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. Notes, now Israel is, they're out in the desert, and they present a striking picture. Egypt was behind them, Canaan was before them, the wilderness was around them, and the manna was above them. Does anyone see anything cool there? We'll have to pick up in Exodus chapter 16, verse 18. Thank you very much.